Hey, welcome back to Safe Travel RV. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to install a 200-watt solar system in your RV. Now with this system and a good battery bank, it's going to allow you to maintain your 12-volt compressor type refrigerator. It's going to let you be able to run the fan on your propane heat system, run your 12-volt TVs, maybe a small inverter, of course run your lights and charge your phone and laptops. So today's video, we're going to be installing this 26 by 35 100-watt solar panels from Renogy. It's a monocrystalline panel, weighs about 15 pounds, and it came with a PMW controller. Pretty basic system, but this is all we need for this unit. And I'm going to show you how to lay it all out, how to gain access through your roof, how to protect those cables going into your roof, how to make all your connections, how to install your controller, pretty much everything you need, okay? So if you're ready to do a nice little upgrade on your RV, let's get started. So before we climb up on the roof and install these panels, there's a few things we need to know first. Basically, there are 4 types of RV roofs. You have 2 rubber type membrane, TPO and EPDM, fiberglass and aluminum. So if you have a smooth non-membrane type roof, you might consider installing a drill-free adhesive mount system like this no drill RV solar mount kit. You can use like a 3M brand VHB tape along this bottom. Some people actually use a Turnabond tape. There's also a Sikaflex 252 bonding adhesive that you can use. It keeps you from having to drill into the roof itself. But another option is drilling and attaching the brackets directly to the roof structure using a number of RV mount installation kits. But before you start drilling, I recommend that you contact your RV manufacturer and they will send you framing diagrams and wiring diagrams of your RV roof. So this will help you tremendously. Plus, they can also recommend where you can install these solar panels. Many RV manufacturers use either a 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch Luan plywood as their underlayment underneath their roof membrane. And then they'll use some type of insulation, rigid insulation, or fiberglass bat insulation. And then you have your finished ceiling inside the RV. So it's very, very important that you want to drill through this and catch a framing structure of the roof system. Even though some manufacturers are now using 1/2 inch OSB plywood as their underlayment. But what if your roof is curved or it's an aluminum roof? Well, I went to the 2025 Atlanta Camping and RV show this past January, and I had the opportunity to see how many manufacturers are addressing this issue. So let's take a look. The 2025 Atlanta RV and Camping show was a great way to see how RV manufacturers are installing their solar panels. Most of them are going directly to the framing of the roof itself, which is probably by far the best way to do that. But what if you don't have any structure in your roof? What if you have a vacuum bonded roof or an aluminum roof? That changes things a little bit here. Now this manufacturer, again, looks like he went right through the framing of the roof to make his attachments. If you have an aluminum roof like this Airstream, they're going with a flexible solar panel, which is a good option. But keep in mind, these tend to have a shorter lifespan than your rigid solar panels that are mounted with an airspace underneath. I talked to Randy Klassen, the sales manager. I talked to him via email at Leisure Travel Van. They actually put a solar backer panel underneath their vacuum bonded roof, just like Forest River and other vacuum bonded manufacturers do also. This is a 1-piece fiberglass roof on a travel trailer, so there should be structure underneath there. Looks like they probably went right through those framing members also for their attachment. Now you get to your Class Bs that have steel roofs. It looks like this manufacturer bolted straight through the roof to make his brackets to attach that heavy solar panel. Again, this manufacturer on a Class B decided to go with a flexible solar panel for his install. as did this one. And some manufacturers install accessory rails. It looks like that's what that may be theirs, but they still went with a flexible solar panel. But I would recommend, if there's provided for you by the manufacturer, try to attach your solar panels to that rail system like you see here on this Pleasure Way. This is a vacuum bonded one-piece fiberglass motorhome that they decided to use flexible solar panels. Now I'm going to show you exactly how I attached my solar panels to our vacuum bonded roof that had solar backer panels underneath it.
So now it's time to get up on the roof and see where we're going to lay these panels out. And I recommend that you get a piece of cardboard or a scrap piece of carpet, cut the same size as your panels, so you can kind of move them around and see where they're going to line up. Because I've already marked out the locations for my trusses underneath my roof membrane, and also I've installed my solar gland. So this is where I think I'm going to put them. This is going to mount right here. Here's my connection. And the second one's going to be mounted right there. So I'm looking to make sure I don't have any shadows from like the air conditioner, and that I still have room that I can walk around if I need to do things. These are my brackets. They're going to be mounted here and here. And then for this one over there, there'll be a set that goes this way. So that looks good. I'm very happy with the layout. So let's go ahead and get these things installed.
So if you find that you're going to have to drill a hole through your RV roof, generally a 1/2-inch hole, it will be perfect to run those 2 cables through. You're going to need something called a solar cable entry port, better known as a solar cable entry gland. Now there's several different types out there. This one is from Go Power. It sort of gives you the option of putting your MC4 connections right here, or if you want to run that cable all the way out up underneath one of your solar panels, so you can make that MC4 connection there. You also have this model here. It's a little bit smaller, but the problem I found with this one was it was a tight radius for that cable to turn and go into my 1/2-inch hole. And I just felt like it was trying to lift it up and compromising the installation. Plus there's no way to physically screw it into the roof deck. The one I went with was from Bouge RV. It has a nice, sleek, low profile. It gives you plenty of room to turn those cables down into the hole. And it also has 3 mounting holes, which I'm going to use along with my adhesive tape. So to make all your connections, you're going to need something like this. This is a crimper, also from Bouge RV. It comes with several MC4 connections right here. And the crimper, it allows you to make those connections. And then it allows you to tighten them down and also release those connections. So once you've laid out where you want your hole to come out, you can go ahead and drill that with a 1/2-inch spade bit. Here I am going through that Luan fiberglass layer, and just poking down through the insulation until I hit the ceiling on the inside, and then I'll drill through that. Now I just want to go down and double check to make sure that it came out where we had measured for, which is inside a cabinet. That's where we're going to pass all of our wires through. So that looks good. Our next step is just to pass those 2 wires right down to that cabinet, leave a little extra to make your connections with, and then we'll get our gland inserted onto that and lay down some 3M VHB tape. But first I want to clean that fiberglass roof with a degreaser and then wipe it back down with some rubbing alcohol. And then for good measure, I'm going to seal up that hole with some silicone sealant. And then we'll just press our gland right onto the top of the fiberglass roof, holding it for about 10 seconds. And that'll make sure it bonds well. Then we'll just follow up with tapping and drilling 3 screw holes. That's the finished product there. So our next step is to apply some self-leveling die-core lap sealant. I'm going to hold off on putting those caps on those connections right there so I can get my sealant all around this gland. Now I just do one pass. I go right along the junction of the gland and the roof, and then I come back again on the top side of it and then on the bottom side of it, laying it down really heavy. And so that's the finished product right there. So now that we know where we're going to install our solar panels, we need to come inside and think about how we're going to run that wiring. Now, some things to keep in mind: your battery, you always want to hook your battery up to your solar controller first, and that run from the solar controller to the battery needs to be the shortest distance possible. Now, right here up in this cabinet, I've got a really good place to drill my hole through the roof and run my cable in from the solar panel. Then we can come in behind this panel right here to gain access to the back here. And I plan on installing my solar controller right here, just surface mount that. And then it's a short run behind this trim, which most RV doors have. That trim will come off, and we're going to run that wiring all the way down. And as you can see, I've already drilled a hole through the floor to catch that, and that's going to actually, we'll go outside, that's going to connect to the other side of this, which is my solar connection. A lot of RVs are pre-wired for solar. I was using this with my suitcase solar, and I'm just going to go in behind here and grab those two wires because they go to the battery. Now my batteries, we need to talk briefly about that. I have two Battle Born 100 plus amp batteries, so I've got over 200 amps of usable power, and being as they are lithium, I can discharge these down to about 15%. Your lead acid batteries, you cannot really go below 50% without causing damage. As you can see, this compartment's pretty full, so it would have been hard to get some more wiring in there for my solar charger. That's why I'm going to use the backside of this. Now, another option that you can do, if your converter is close by, you can tie into the positive and negative lugs of that converter panel, but mine's on a slide and it's a long ways away, so I'm not going to use that. But it could work for you, especially if it's in a solid wall and you have access to a panel that's in a cabinet and you have cabinets above. All right, so let's get this wire run. This is our next step. This is what came with my solar system. This is 12 gauge and it's got a 15 amp fuse on the end of it. It's got a nice insulated jacket. So we're just going to pass that through down to the battery and get that connection made and install this solar controller. So just to make sure that you remove any fuses in your wiring harness before you start to make all these connections so you don't short anything out. Back underneath the RV here, you'll see those two wires were from my solar connection on the side of the RV. I'm going to connect my ground to that white one, and I'm going to connect my power going to the battery to that red one, which also has an inline fuse real close to the battery. I'm simply using butt connectors here. They've worked very well for me in the past. You just want to make sure when you make your connections that you give it a nice tug to make sure that everything's nice and tight. Now, I do like to go a step further when I'm under the RV in wet conditions. I'm going to use a product called liquid electrical tape, and I'll apply 2 to 3 coats on those butt connectors on the end to ensure that no water gets in there, and then I'll come back over the top of that once they're dry with some more electrical tape. After I do all that, I'll just bundle that harness up and zip tie it back up into the frame where it's out of the way. Now, I'm not going to show you how I connected my controller because it's simply 2 wires coming from your solar panels and then the 2 wires from the batteries. So it's pretty straightforward. Just make sure you don't have any power on any of those when you make your connections. The trim snaps right back on. I just had to add a little bit of wire molding coming out of that cabinet. That's really the only thing different I had to do. So it gives you a really nice finish when you do it this way. No solar panel install video would be complete without me talking about MC4 connections. Now, I found a channel out there. The channel is Johnny's Weekends, and the video is MC4 Install Crimping Easy. It's an excellent video. I recommend you jump over to that and watch it for the complete install. But there are a few things that I did learn that I think might help you. When you're talking about the male connector, you want to use the female pin. When you have the female connector, you want to use the male pin. On your wire stripping, some people say 1/4 inch, some say 3/4. I go 1/2 inch and just give it one little twist just to squeeze that bundle together. The problem is, especially on your female connector, pin connector, if you cut it too long, it's going to go up inside of that connector and impede the male pin from getting a good closure. So 1/2 inch, you place it in, you put your insulation right up against that metal crimp there, and then you just crimp it down, and it's that easy. But I also found out that sometimes you can't get this pin to lock in to the connector. So I just grab some needle nose pliers back here on the metal tab part, and I push it in until it clicks. Then I've got a solid connection, and then I can screw my cap down. So that's it. If your roof is a vacuum bonded roof with no structure under it, like this one is, sometimes the manufacturer will provide a solar backer panel for you to screw down into. Those are very thin galvanized steel plates underneath this Luan decking. At first I tried those lag bolts and they were just not good enough to get a strong purchase. So I'm switched over to these 1/4 inch by 20 jack nuts. And they're pretty easy to install. Here you can see I'm just using a 7/16 drill bit. And the jack nuts usually come with an insertion tool so you can put them in correctly. Now some manufacturers will actually just use a number 10 by 75 stainless steel self-tapping screw, but those are usually for brackets that have at least 2 holes in it. Mine just has 1, so I decided to use this. I think I'm going to be very happy with the results. And once I have all of those in, I'm going to add a little Loctite to my 1/4 inch bolt. There's some butyl tape underneath that bracket. I'm just going to snug them down really tight. And once that's done, I'll just cover everything with Dicor self-leveling sealant. Let that sit a couple of days. I'll install the rest of my brackets and cross members, and then I'll attach my solar panels and make all my connections, and that'll wrap it up. Okay, all of our final connections have been made. This project is complete. We've got a nice sunny day here in Georgia. Let's step inside and test this system out. Now, as you recall, I mounted everything behind this panel right here. And inside, you can see that I have a battery switch, which is a 30 amp inline fuse. And then my solar panel disconnect is a 32 amp DC breaker. So you always want to turn on your batteries first. That will activate your controller. It'll go through a self-test, and it shows us at 13.8 volts now, looking for those solar panels. We'll reach inside, turn the solar panels on, give it just a second. That red light will come on, then the blue light showing that the batteries are being charged, and everything looks good. So I hope this was helpful for you. This is a great basic system to get started. Please leave any comments or suggestions below. And until next time, safe travel.